Water will always be blue, grass will always be green, and IGN will always be a big fat steamy pile of dog. Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at another gaming journalist. So a gaming journalist from IGN made possibly one of the worst videos of all time. Now, I've already covered IGN here on the channel before because their awful PS Portal review. I mean, he goes down to point out like massive flaws with the system and then gives it a higher score than the Steam Deck. However, we are not talking about the PlayStation Portal or the Steam Deck today. We're talking about a video that IGN made on Resident Evil 5, more specifically why they think the game cannot be remade. Basically, the reason comes down to because they think the game is racist, and if you've ever played Resident Evil 5, you know that that's just not the case, dude.
With Resident Evil 4's release last year, Capcom's project to remake the glory years of its survival horror series is complete. But as the game's post-credit scene suggests, the remakes aren't over. And so the big question is, where next? The obvious answer is a remake of Resident Evil 5.
Yeah, this game could really do with a remake. I mean, they could really do away with that piss yellow filter they have over the game. Also, it just makes sense. After you do 4, you do 5.
But on the game's 15th anniversary,
I just want to point out the fact that IGN is searching for issues in a 15-year-old game that they had no issue with when it came out. Man, IGN must really be desperate for those ad revenue shekels. In fact, IGN is so starved for content, they're like a fucking rabid animal that hasn't eaten in months. What's even worse than that is the video is exactly 8 minutes and 3 seconds long. If you don't know, on YouTube, if you have your video past 8 minutes, you can put mid-roll ads in your video to make more money.
It's clear that moving forward chronologically will take Capcom's remakes into the series' weakest era, an era of gameplay and narrative decisions best left in the past.
Dude, Resident Evil 5 wasn't even that bad, let's be honest. I mean, the game isn't like the others in the series, but I don't think it makes it bad. It's an action-focused kind of Resident Evil game, whereas a lot of the other games are horror-focused.
Resident Evil 5 simply can't be remade.
Just wait until you guys hear the reason as to why this game can't be remade.
At least not to the standards of Capcom's best work. And so the answer is not to remake, but to rewrite.
There was absolutely nothing wrong with the writing of Resident Evil 5. And I think the funniest part about this all is you defended this game when it came out 15 years ago, and you said it wasn't bad at all. You said it wasn't racist, and you gave the game a 9 out of 10, but all of a sudden you decide to change your mind 15 years later. Like, bro, I get it, times are tough, but are you this desperate?
Resident Evil is a survival horror series.
Well, no shit.
Not that you'd know that playing Resident Evil 5. Sure, it features a constant flow of horrific imagery, but Resident Evil 5 is an action game through and through. That's evident in its cover shooter mechanics, vehicle chases with on-rails turret sequences, and the constant rattle of assault rifles.
Oh, let me guess, it's bad because it's different. Also, for the next few minutes, he says a bunch of shit we already know, so I'm just gonna go ahead and speed past that part because not only is it extremely boring, but it's not really relevant to what he's talking about, his issues with the game.
Resident Evil 5, meanwhile, presents its enemies as waves to be gunned down with increasingly powerful weaponry.
You mean to tell me in a video game the enemies are there to be killed? Whoa, no way. Man, I thought they were there so you could give them a big fat high five, maybe, you know, give them a hug, unzip their No, but seriously, how is this different from any other game? All the other Resident Evil games are the exact same. The enemies are there, so you can kill them. You play Doom, the demons are there, so you can kill them. Whatever I'm playing in the background probably has enemies, and they're put there so you can kill them.
Their purpose is cannon fodder, a wall of meat to slow your progress through levels.
Dude, does this guy ever stop talking?
You could argue that Resident Evil 5 is actually the Resident Evil most in need of a remake.
I mean, yeah, it is in need of a remake. The graphics are starting to look a little bit dated, and the piss filter is really annoying, and they could do away with that.
A whole new environmental structure and scenario design that reins in the action and dials up the horror would bring it in line with Capcom's other remakes. But all of this doesn't account for Resident Evil 5's most notorious problem: racism.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Well, apparently Resident Evil 5 is racist. I mean, yeah, that totally makes sense, dude. Let's go ahead and hear his explanation as to why it is racist. Spoiler alert, it isn't.
Set in a fictional West African country, Resident Evil 5's primary antagonists are black people.
Alright, I'm convinced at this point that you've just never played the game because the main antagonist is a white guy who caused an infection to spread in Africa. Also, are you really surprised that the infected are African considering, you know, the people of Africa were the ones getting infected?
Yes, it's technically the Ouroboros virus that protagonist Chris Redfield is fighting.
The virus that was started by the main antagonist who is white. I mean, you just don't bring that up because it doesn't fit your narrative. Dude, watching this video is worse than getting the bubonic plague, I swear.
But the parasite's host is depicted as a nation of mobs and primitives who are violent even before their infection.
No, they're portrayed as violent when they have this, like, mind-infecting virus in them.
Intentionally or not, Resident Evil 5 positions Africa as the Dark Continent, an uncivilized world harboring a diseased population that needs gunning down via Western intervention in the name of global security.
Okay, so in the event of a zombie outbreak, I think it's pretty justified to shoot the zombies. Also, in the other Resident Evil games, the zombies are different nationalities. Like, in Resident Evil 4, the enemies are Spanish zombies, and you guys didn't have a problem with that. I simply don't understand how it's any different. Like, what's the difference between killing Spanish zombies and African zombies? What's the difference between that and killing American zombies? It's all the same shit, dude. They're fucking zombies. Not once have I ever played a game where I shot zombies and thought, what skin color is this zombie? No, I just shot the fucking zombie. I wouldn't be able to tell you the skin color of zombies from some of my favorite games, because guess what? It doesn't matter. The only people something like this would matter to is people who's clearly just trying to make a video trying to get a few bucks off rage clicks. And I guess you got the attention you wanted because everyone's making videos just roasting you guys, so good job.
This insensitive treatment of people of colour was hotly debated even as early as Resident Evil 5's debut trailer.
Yeah, because in the trailer it kinda did look like racist, it kinda did. But when the game actually came out and people seen what was going on, they immediately realized that, yeah, this game isn't racist.
With writers such as Ngai Kroll and Stephen Totillo pointing out the game's uncomfortable post-colonial imagery.
Stephen Totillo used to work for Kotaku, so everything he said and everything he's going to ever say will be irrelevant to me. I mean, this is what Kotaku is known for. Dude, what the fuck? Which, by the way, this was complete bullshit, and there wasn't a disability slur in the game. They just misheard something. Because who would sit down and actually make sure what you're publishing is accurate before you publish it? Obviously not Kotaku.
The arguments and think pieces continued well into the game's release window, with IGN's own former editor-in-chief Hilary Goldstein having also wrestled with the subject. But that was 2009, a time when race was apparently a debate rather than a reality.
Yes, because race has never existed up until now. Thanks for telling us that, IGN.
In the 2020s, in a post-Black Lives Matter world, there is only one acceptable response to a white man shooting waves of Africans for an entire video game. No.
Alright, few things I want to say. First of all, you completely forget to mention that if you play co-op, the second character that you play as, honestly I don't remember her name, but she's black. Second of all, as I've already mentioned before, you never had a problem with Resident Evil 4 when you were killing the Spanish zombies. And third of all, you guys defended this game 15 years ago when it came out and said it wasn't racist, but all of a sudden that's changed 15 years later?
Remakes may be able to redefine their source material, but there's only so many changes you can make until it's not a remake at all, but an entirely new game. And if you take Africa out of Resident Evil 5, is it Resident Evil 5 anymore?
So this guy seriously expects Capcom to just take the fucking country the game takes place in out of the game? Like, hey genius, the game is set in Africa. The zombies are gonna be African. Whoa.
Even with a vastly improved, more sensitive take on the continent, perhaps one with a black protagonist and a more empathetic look at the outbreak, the experience would simply be too divorced from the original to hold the name Resident Evil 5.
There is a black protagonist. In fact, you literally showed her on your screen just a few seconds ago. And it's the one you play as in co-op. There's no way you guys are serious. Seriously, how can you be this dumb? You literally showed the black protagonist on your screen and then said there should be a black protagonist. Oh my god, dude.
So where does Capcom go now? Personally, I'd look backwards. Code Veronica is an ideal candidate, as is the original Resident Evil. But if the only way is chronologically forward, then a total rewrite of what comes next is the logical path.
So Resident Evil 5 needs to be completely rewritten because you don't understand it. Am I hearing that right? Is that what you're trying to say? It is, isn't it? You're trying to say that the game needs to be entirely rewritten because you don't understand it.
Because what followed Resident Evil 4 was not one terrible game, but two. Resident Evil 6 tripled down on the action-packed, set-piece heavy shooter design.
It's bad because it's different. I love when people say stuff like this, dude. This reminds me of the people with Doom Eternal that were crying and seething because there was platforming in the game. What's that, platforming in my Doom? Oh no sir, no thank you.
To the extent that much of it could be mistaken for a third-person Call of Duty spin-off were it not for the monsters.
Okay, I had my doubts going through this video. I'm like, maybe this guy played the game, maybe he played a little bit of the game, maybe he didn't pay attention to the story, like, I don't know. But what you just said right there clarifies to me very clearly that you haven't played the game.
Its restrictive level design practically puts you in a chokehold, forcing you to endure a barrage of bombastic moments that have no interest in evoking any sense of fear.
Dude, if I were you, I'd be fearing losing my job after posting a video like this. This video right here is a prime example of why everyone makes fun of gaming journalism and doesn't respect it.
Resident Evil 6 is a survival horror, only in that it's a horrible game that you have to survive playing.
Alright, I don't want to be that guy, but you're not funny, dude. Like, nobody's laughing at that. That's straight up some joke you'd see on Reddit.
But this time around, it doesn't have to be like that. Capcom now has the opportunity to ignore the past and completely reinvent this chunk of the timeline.
Or they could ignore your video and just remake the game the way it was, because there was nothing wrong with the game, and you would know that if you actually played it. I love this logic, dude. He's sitting here insulting this game, trying to call it racist because he didn't understand it.
In Resident Evil 4 Remake's post-credit scene, evil mastermind Albert Wesker details his plans for world domination to Ada Wong.
Yeah, and he's the main antagonist of Resident Evil 5, and he's white, by the way. And he goes on to wrap up the video from here. Honestly, it's pretty relevant, so I'm not gonna go over that. So basically, Resident Evil 5 is not a racist game. In fact, it's the opposite. Anyone who's played the game can tell you that. Maybe next time, before you put out one of these articles, actually play through the game you're talking about and pay attention to the story and all the details, and you wouldn't be having people on the internet roast your video. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. Peace.